Season 24, let's start with where we left off, gents. The champions, Atlanta United, the Five Stripes, who've come in and really kind of raised the bar in many ways, haven't they, in the 2 years. But does this feel like a fork in the road to them, and specifically with the direction they've gone now with their coach, Frank de Boer? Tata Martino, obviously. Achieved great things. They could have gone, they could have stuck with the Argentine formula. They did not. Sampaoli, Guillermo Barros Schelotto, who we'll get on to later in the show, they didn't go in that direction. Is it a gamble the way they have gone, do you think, going with De Boer?
Naturally, on paper, it seems that way. And from the outside looking in, I'm merely evaluating the choice given the player personnel that you have available and the connections that you have sold as a club and saying, look, this is what we're building. And look at the path that we've created between us and the young South American player. And look at the productivity that we've gotten from those players, whether it's Miguel Almirón and Joseph Martinez, Tito Villalba, so on and so forth. That path has been there. And so that's not to say that Frank de Boer cannot come in and get these players to answer his call and to execute his game plan out on the field. But I'm merely saying that if Tata Martino gets up in front of those players, right away there's a connection there. Right away. Just simply because culturally you come from places that you're familiar with. And you can communicate with those players in a way that you can get their attention just by walking into the locker room. Frank de Boer can do that, but I think it would take a longer period of time because now players, again, you have to flip the switch for whatever your relationship was with Tata Martino and now say, well, let's see what Frank de Boer brings to the table. Now, players, from my experience, you're more than open for a new manager to come in. But the moment that something goes in a direction that doesn't point to the sort of success that you had with the last guy, then you start saying, well, that's not the way we did it last year. And last year we won the championship. There was a formula that was working.
Yeah.
Tata Martinez walked away. You may think that naturally there were other choices that might have been a little bit more suited to what you have in front of you with this group of players. But you've decided to go in the Frank de Boer direction, and if it's successful, I'll be the first one to say, you know what, I was wrong.
Yeah.
But the talent of this team should be successful regardless of whether Frank de Boer is there or not.
You mentioned De Boer's resume, and I get that there are like some concerns there. I think if you look at the time at Ajax, he takes over a team that wasn't winning, got them winning a title, and then kept them winning. And then the rest of his resume I kind of take with a grain of salt.
You do?
Yeah, because at Crystal Palace, he's clearly trying to play possession with a team that, you know, is what, middle to bottom of the table. We know that generally is not going to work in the Premier League. I think you can measure his tenure at Crystal Palace in minutes. It's less than 500 minutes or so. So I take that with a grain of salt. And then his time at Inter Milan, he takes over at the end of an ownership change. And specifically for MLS fans, the ownership group in charge of Inter Milan when he took over is the same group that took over DC United in 2012. And I'll just say this. That business group has a very clear way of doing business. It's to strip things down. And I think that's probably the situation that Inter Milan was when De Boer inherits it. So to me, I'm not so concerned about maybe like the resume, but Ala's point, you can maybe talk more about the tactical differences between Tata and De Boer. I don't know that I'm super qualified on that, but the relationships are clear. Like you mentioned the big guys, but Barco, Escobar, LGP, Joseph. I mean, maybe Joseph's not a Tata guy, but Tata's clearly the one that sold Joseph. Remedi, Villalba, who you mentioned. These are all guys who are there like specifically because of Tata. Almirón in his Players Tribune article says, Tata is Atlanta for me. To me, you know, all of these guys were here because of Tata and then maybe playing their best and motivated uniquely because of him. So for me, it's just like a huge emotional question more than it is like a tactical question.
It was interesting, Ali, on that subject of tactics and philosophy and style to hear Carlos Bocanegra and Darren Eales come out and say, listen, Frank's style of play was very important to us. His philosophy, his clockwork orange possession football. It's almost like they wanted to change. They didn't talk about winning. They were like, it's his style of play and the fact that he's got a track record of working with youth too that really attracted them. So, but that was interesting to me because they could have played it safe. Could have played it much safer with Scalotto
and to their credit, Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra, Atlanta United, they've hit it out of the park in every decision they've made, seemingly. Atlanta has come into the league and set a new standard for everybody, and everybody's trying to catch up to them. So they have bought themselves some equity when it comes to that. The only thing I would put forth is the fact that you have a team, and you did certainly last year, a team that in transition there was nobody better in Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
When Miguel Almirón got going with that ball at speed in transition, and Joseph Martinez is running, and Villalba is running full speed, Julian Gressel is coming from behind, and they got themselves in a position where they recovered possession of the ball in the midfield, and then they got after you. They were impossible to stop.
Yeah.
Now, I'm all for possession, but if you take away one of your strengths as a team, and you sacrifice that because you're trying to marry a style of play, I think that's a mistake. And again, I'll go back to the initial point that do the pieces right now available in that locker room match that style of play?
Right.
That's a big question.
You also made a good point, though. The pieces in that locker room are like really, really good relative to the rest of MLS.
Yeah.
I think they do have an overwhelming talent edge, at least like in the attacking third and on. So I think it's worth noting that even though the pieces may not fit, like the Boer still has a great team, and he should be held to that standard. And on top of that, the other two names you mentioned, Bocanegra and Eales, like maybe I'm disrespecting their work, or I don't know as much about it. I give Tata a lot of credit for those first 2 years in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I think that those two guys now have to really, truly prove their value, because Tata was, as much as a great coach, he was maybe the best recruiter in MLS.
Talking of the talent they have, or now have, short list: Neymar, Ronaldinho, Tevez, former South American Players of the Year. Now they have the current South American Player of the Year. Pity Martinez, different sort of signing to Almiron, isn't he? 25, he's already in the peak of his career. Can he? What's your sense of him, guys? Can he come in and do what Almiron? He's a different sort of player to Almiron. Can he have the effect that Almiron did? Can he take that even further?
There are a lot of good players in South America.
Yeah.
A lot of talent in South America. And this guy was the most outstanding player in a team that won Copa Libertadores for River Plate. Man, the expectations got to be sky high for Pity Martinez. And it's not unfair to be expecting a whole lot from him because of the resume. This is as strong as resume as you can find from a player coming into Major League Soccer in the prime of his career. Pity Martinez should be held to that standard. And let me tell you, I am expecting him to be just as good as Miguel Almirón, even if he is a different player, to have a similar impact to Atlanta United and to create opportunities for Joseph Martinez the way that Miguel Almirón did. Maybe a different player, but the standard should not be any different. And if you're willing to sell Miguel Almirón because you're bringing Pity Martinez in, then he's got to deliver.